Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Reactaholics. Let's introduce everybody to you. Calum, how are you doing?
Fine, thanks. I am doing particularly well on this particularly good evening in this particular podcast during this particular gig with my particular friends.
Now, Calum, I'll remind you, if I don't swear, you're not allowed to sing. It's going to be tested today.
Yeah, it's going to be tested today, but I will resist. I've resisted many things. I shall perceive.
It's okay. I'm sure we'll talk about like Last Airbender in the future, and then me not swearing will be tested as well. We are, of course, joined by the lovely AJ. Hey, AJ.
Hi.
How is your day going?
It's going very nice. How about yours?
It's okay. My cat won't do cute stuff on command. Now he's just sitting there looking at me like I'm nuts. He's trying to sleep, but he's not committing to it. It's weird. Anyways, I am Dr. Knealetapus. Welcome to our show. And I have no opening jokes today. I feel broken. Anybody got any opening jokes?
Not that I know of.
We're broken. There, that's the opening joke.
Calum, no. Tell a joke. Come on. Tell a joke.
Let me think.
Get closer to your mic and tell a joke.
Where's
You're unaudible. Get closer to your mic.
I'm trying to look for a joke book of some kind. Where's Right. Okay. Thanks for telling me all about that.
It better be funny. Me and AJ are judging you right now. It better be wonderful.
Where's the joke book I keep?
The what?
I'm trying to look for my joke. I keep it in my jacket, but
You have a joke journal?
yeah, it was a Vino joke book. It's a really... Oh wait. Oh, I got one.
Okay.
Which knight of Arthur's Knights of the Round Table was completely obsessed with mathematics?
I don't know. Which one?
Circumference.
I hate you.
Funny joke.
Well, it's all uphill from here. I would like to apologize that we are a little low on the cast side today. It's just the three of us. We couldn't get a hold of Mel today. And unfortunately, Will was going to be in the episode. But what was he going to do?
He was going to see 1917.
With his father.
What is 1917? Is that a movie?
Yeah.
Kneale, where have you been?
It's one of the nominations for Best Movie of the Year.
Yeah,
You call yourself a movie nerd.
This is why I said we shouldn't talk about the movie awards. Because
trailers.
I haven't seen the trailer.
Hey, I haven't seen Mandalorian, and you're going to talk about Mandalorian. You haven't seen many of the films. We're going to talk about the films that have been nominated for the awards. Deal with it.
Understood. We're going to do it. That being said, we are also going to talk about Mandalorian. And Will really wanted to be here specifically because today is kind of a Will episode, but without Will. So next week, we're actually going to, next episode, we're actually going to ask Will's opinions on one of these topics, sort of has an intro.
Sorry, Will. Shout out to Darth Porter 7. We love you.
We do love you, Will. We love you with all of our small little hearts. Well, anyways, let's just jump right into the news. So earlier this week, to start my week, we had a big scare.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I think a lot of people aren't going to care about this, but I literally almost bursted into tears. There was this rumor, which at this point is confirmed to be just that, a rumor, that Hawkeye was delayed indefinitely and maybe canceled. And I remember sending it into our group chat. I was devastated. I thought it was completely real. And then later that day, I don't know who it is, but somebody at Disney officially said, no, that's not happening. And we're actually going to start filming in July. So the Hawkeye series begins being a thing in July, and it has not been delayed. It's still happening. Kneales everywhere can rejoice. What do you guys think about this?
I actually did not hear about that rumor. I wasn't even aware there was a show being in development.
Oh, you didn't know about the Hawkeye show?
No.
Okay, so recommendation, and this is for everybody watching too. Go on Disney Plus. There's this thing called Expanding the Universe.
Okay.
And what that is it just tells you all the future Disney Marvel shows that are currently announced. It tells you about, you might not know this. There's going to be a She-Hulk show. There's going to be a Moon Knight show, Miss Marvel. There's a bunch of them. You'll see them.
Okay.
But I was personally scared because, as discussed in this show a lot, Hawkeye happens to be my favorite superhero, and I was elated when the show got announced. And the idea of it getting canceled literally is like, this reason you had to live, that's gone now. Just like a crisis of faith.
Of course,
Calum?
I would step in and you would be acting like a drama queen.
Oh,
I know.
Mel.
You missed things.
I know.
But Mel is here.
Hi.
Don't worry. You're right. You're right to say no. You didn't miss too much.
We are doing the we're talking about the Hawkeye cancellation rumor, and that it is confirmed a rumor, which I am so happy about. Calum, did you have opinions on this before we go to the next piece of news?
I don't know. All I know is that I'm carrying on the drinking game because no one in the show can ever stop talking about Marvel.
I mean, to be fair, Marvel is like too big now. It's literally like, it's got to be like the most popular franchise of all time in terms of movies, right?
Well, I would
Like,
say
is there a bigger one?
I would say one of them. I wouldn't say like.
Yeah.
I would say that they're the top dogs right now, but it's also a bad thing for the nerd community, though. But continue.
I'm just saying they sometimes make $1 billion. Not all the time, but sometimes. And that's impressive.
$1 billion.
But moving on, we're not leaving Marvel just yet, so get ready for another swig, Calum. The Morbius trailer came out this week, and I'm wondering what the general opinions on it are.
Mel?
Oh, sure, yep. Because you have to go with the one who's the most critical. Which is, I mean, you're right, because I'm right, but you don't have to jump with me first all the time.
Well, does someone else want to go first, then?
I'll go first. I actually didn't mind it. I am scared what they're possibly going to do, but I think it did what I was hoping a Morbius trailer would do. It piqued my interest enough. Do I have complete faith in it? No, because it's just a trailer, and I think a lot of people need to treat trailers with a grain of salt, unless it's obvious it shows too much. And we've seen that before, where trailers show pretty much too much, and being like, that's the entire movie incarnate.
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I didn't hate it. Yep, he knows. But I think it's going to be, I think it at least caught my interest enough where it's just like, okay, I see where you're going with this. I definitely like the tidbits of how they showed like how Morbius could look, that they did stay pretty true to his aesthetic, but you didn't see like quite enough of it. And I think that's a good thing. It could also be a bad thing, but I didn't hate it. That's my overall general consensus.
I agree. Well, I think I'm actually a little different. You guys might be aware of this because I freaked out in the group chat. I actually loved this trailer.
Of course.
Like, really hardcore loved it. I know I was on its side the last episode, but I wasn't expecting to like it this much. Like, I was always like, oh, it could be good, and I was definitely campaigning for it. but I was blown away. Like, I think the Beethoven got me. It got me into it. And just all of the really cool scenes and how Morbius totally looks like this, like, just screwed up embodied person. And how he's trying to, like, save his own life and help himself. It really nails this, like, it feels like this person could be a good person or a bad person. And Jared Leto is doing a very good job. We haven't seen enough of him yet, but what we've seen, I think he's doing pretty good. I also like that he's actually a vampire and isn't got... So in the comic books and the older TV shows, he had, like, mouths in his hands, and he would suck out people's plasma because they couldn't say blood. And now he's actually going to go suck people's blood and be a vampire and, murder people, which is always a good thing.
Hey.
And, of course, like, the final scene of revealing Michael Keaton, Vulture.
Oh, yeah, that's what got me the most, was Michael Keaton being the Vulture, being like, oh, yes, they are definitely planning for a Sinister Six here. Except for I think that they're not going to go with the original Sinister Six. I think they're going with the one that possibly has, shit, why am I spacing his name? Mysterio. No, that's not right.
Yeah, Mysterio?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say Mysterio, but then it came out wrong. But yeah, I think that they're going to have the Sinister Six where Mysterio was in it, because Mysterio wasn't in the original Sinister Six. Neither was Morbius, if I recall right.
You're definitely correct. I think they're doing their own version. Like, if I recall, the original version was, and this is improv, so I might be wrong, Dr. Octopus, Electro, Vulture, Rhino, Sandman, Scorpion? I don't know. But the Sinister Six, for those of you who don't know, are 6 Spider-Man villains teaming up with one goal, kill Peter.
For a second. Who did you say was in the original lineup? Because I think you were wrong, but I didn't hear you correctly.
I said Doc Ock, Electro, Vulture, Lizard.
No, I'm wrong. Mysterio was in the original lineup. Because Doc Ock was in the original, yeah. Because Doc Ock was in the original Sinister Six. So is Vulture. And I want to say also too, Electro was in it. I know Electro, and Kraven was in it.
Sandman and Rhino, I think, were the last two then.
No, Sandman was in the original, not Rhino. Rhino was in another, I think, in another
Really?
alternative. Yeah. Rhino definitely was in the original Sinister Six. I think I'm spacing who the last person could be, but it's just showing, like, with Vulture coming in, that they are planning on making a Sinister Six movie. It probably won't be the original lineup, because I know that either, like for example, Sandman or Electro haven't had their own movies. Either they have not been in it at all, or they've only been side characters.
Here's the thing. I don't think it's going to be their own movie. I think they're going to be in the MCU, and they're going to be the villains of Spider-Man 3. Maybe I'm wrong, but I hope that's the case.
Well, yeah, they're definitely trying to build up where they bring in the Sinister Six, which I'm thankful that they're doing it now with the new adaptation of Spider-Man, because if they try to do it with the past 5 ones, it would have just not worked.
What did you think about the trailer, AJ?
Again, like I said in my reaction on Stardust, I knew nothing about Morbius. I'm not that knowledgeable with Spider-Man villains or characters, so I thought the trailer looked okay, but I'm definitely intrigued.
Aye.
Well, that's good. Advertising like a new character, like it was. So it piqued your interest.
Yeah, because I like the idea of Morbius, like the character himself.
Right. I think the only thing that's gonna, like, make or break me with the movie is I think the love interest might be Felicia, because that was everything with Morbius. was his relationship with Felicia. And I'm hoping that's Felicia. And if it's not, I'm going to be kind of pissed.
Here's the thing, and I hate to like wreck it, but I do think confirmed it's not Felicia Hardy. I'm not 100, but
Isn't
I'm pretty sure.
Black Cat?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I did not know that.
Now,
That being said, Morbius has had other love interests, so maybe it's one of them. But
right, but Felicia Hardy and Morbius was always like the main, or like the one that you cared about the most.
It was very big in the animated series. Like that was like Morbius's biggest thing. That and Blade was in his episodes. But speaking of which, I guess we can bring this up. Since Blade is coming to the MCU, do you think maybe Morbius will play a role in that? Because the two characters are connected in the comics.
They're going to have to, especially why I made the comment of earlier, or like a few seconds ago, why when we were saying that, you know, the MCU is popular, is that I came to a realization that there are certain things nowadays that you can't just call yourself a nerd because you watch it. And unfortunately, one of the things is if you've only have been involved in the MCU, you haven't been you can't just go up and be like, yeah, I'm a nerd. I watch like all the MCU movies. And I think if they're, you know, still trying to appease, you know, comic book fans and like newer fans alike, is they're going to have to link, you know, Blade and Morbius some way, or else there's really not going to be a point of even introducing Morbius, because it goes back to my original fear when we talked about this on the Reactaholics, is that Morbius isn't that big of a character. Like what AJ said, she has, you know, she's a good example. So I'm going to use you as an example. I'm not being mean, but just to kind of drive my point home, like she's never to, you know, she's not really knowledgeable on comic book history or the lores and stuff, or the universes. So Morbius is, you know, for example, with her, is an unknown villain. And it just kind of drives my point home. And there wouldn't be a point of making a Morbius movie if they weren't going to somehow have Blade and Morbius be connected somehow. Because even in the comic books, they're connected.
That would be so cool just to see Blade and Morbius fight together. That would be cool.
On the big screen.
So I think my only concern is that if they make Morbius or Blade, and if they don't connect, it's going to bomb. People are going to start hating the idea, and which can also to wreck possible ideas. Like, for example, it could damage the Sinister Six to a degree if they don't do it that way. So I think the smart move would be, if you're going to be bringing Blade back to life and introducing Blade into the MCU, you're going to have Morbius, even if it's not like a grand scale, like even if it's just like one movie of them together in some way, shape, or form, or even with them being in a Spider-Man movie, they're going to have to be connected, or else it's just not going to sit with fans. Like, for example, like fans like AJ who only know the MCU pretty much, they don't know anything else. It's going to lead to confusion, I think. And then with comic book fans, like ones like me who've read, you know, almost every single comic, or at least have knowledge if I haven't read any, it's going to frustrate and cause a scene. And especially since the MCU is a huge powerhouse, and it has been for the past, 12 years, that, because it goes back to what we were talking about, like a couple episodes before, of my fear of, that the MCU might pick that one movie that's going to cause people to, no longer care for the MCU. Which I don't want to see at all. Even there's some MCU movies I don't care about because they took a lot of creative liberties. But why I like the MCU is that with those creative liberties, you didn't have to fully hate it, even if you were like die-hard, hardcore comic book nerd. Like, for example, Civil War, I personally never like fully loved it. I loved it for what they did, because even though they steered clear away, but of course you got kind of a makeup with, Infinity War and Endgame. kind of.
All right.
That it's going to be, if they don't introduce Blade and Morbius together, that it's going to cause, the MCU's 12-year streak to kind of, being like, okay, this was good for 12 years. Now it's not good anymore.
I mean, what do you think, Cal? We haven't got your opinions on anything about this yet.
Yeah.
Trailer.
So, I have very shaky feelings about Morbius in general. On the one hand, I shouldn't really judge a book by its cover. This is just a trailer, and you know what? This might just be a masterpiece. This may very well be an excellently made superhero movie. We just don't know it yet. You just can't judge books by the covers. If there's anything I've learned, you can't get overhyped from a trailer. I learned that the hard way with Man of Steel. There's certain things that attracted me about the trailer. I am intrigued. I've never been introduced to Morbius before. You could say that I'm in the film-going category of people who have heard of the comics but mainly knew the characters through the movies. But after seeing the tone of the movie and knowing that it's made by the same people that made Venom, am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Okay, I have very bad feelings about this. This may very well be another turd in the wind.
I don't know if it's the same writers or directors, but it is the same studio.
I know that it's at least the same studio, but I also too read in the credits that some people who were involved with Far From Home are involved in it.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, very good.
This could be great. The trailer looks good. Michael Keaton's in there. If nothing else, we're getting more Spider-Man villains in the MCU, which I think is always a good thing. And this unintentionally opens the door to getting the Venom symbiote on some of those Marvel characters.
Oh boy, Venom!
I'd love to see that on the big screen.
That incarnation of Venom, and I've got a really bad feeling about this. I mean, I honestly, there are people who are passionate about this, and again, I haven't seen Morbius, so it's too soon to judge. But if it's good, then we're gonna give Sony more of a chance outside of their animated media, Into the Spider-Verse. But if it's bad, then then Marvel is ironically becoming more like DC, and DC is ironically becoming more like Marvel. Especially when you compare their recent villain-focused movies. Venom, that comes nowhere near close to Joker. So Morbius, we'll just have to wait and see.
That is something to think about, though. The most recent thing that Sony made that was Spider-Man related was Spider-Verse. So their current thing was super successful, probably the best Spider-Man movie ever. Maybe we can keep that train going. Maybe this will be an amazing look into a character a lot of people don't know about. But with that, let's move on to a little bit of more news. This one's not Marvel related. We're sort of moving past that now. Oh, wait. Actually, there is another Marvel related thing to say. Christian Bale is in talks to be playing somebody in the MCU. Specifically, there are rumors that he's going to be somebody in Thor: Love and Thunder. The big theory is Beta Ray Bill, which I would love. For those of you who don't know, Beta Ray Bill is a horseman who is also worthy of wielding Thor's hammer, and they have a brother relationship. They really respect each other. Thor and Bill. He's magnificent, he's wonderful, and I love him, and the fans want him in the Marvel movies, so I hope it's him. I don't know if Christian Bale is the best choice for that. I mean, I don't know. I probably would have casted him as a villain. What do you guys think? Who should Christian Bale play?
I was just gonna add to what you said about apparently that character and Thor having a brother relationship. I was just thinking that's gonna be hard to show because Thor had such a brother relationship with Loki in the MCU. I don't know if they had that kind of relationship in the comics, but you really felt that brother relationship throughout the movies. So it would be really hard to try to top or be close to that relationship.
So in the comic books, it was kind of like, I think the MCU kind of glorified it a tiny bit, because it also depends on which universe you're talking about, because there's infinite amount of universes and infinite amount of spin-offs. So, there are some where it's just like, yeah, they did kind of have like a, an actual brother dynamic. And then there was other times, of course, obviously, Loki was the villain, through and through. I just think the MCU kind of glorified it and kind of gave it bare bones, in my opinion, of what their relationship, because their relationship's complicated. Well, let's just put it that way. It's just like, it's like a, when you switch over from being in a relationship to, it's complicated on Facebook. That's essentially what Loki and Thor's relationship was. What Kneale is talking about is this character pretty much has the dynamic of, if Loki wasn't a bad guy at all, and if they didn't have all those complications, then you get them.
Okay.
It's never specifically said in comics or cartoons, but there is specifically this one comic where Thor has to go to someone he trusts, and he's told, only go to someone you hold in the highest regard. And he goes to Bill. So because of that, I think it's this relationship of the two really have this respect and this care for each other. So I would love to specifically see just that bond, like Chewbacca and Han Solo, I guess would be a good comparison.
Right.
Yeah.
Only if Han was Thor and Chewbacca was a horseman. A golden horseman.
Pretty much. And I'm not sure about Christian Bale playing Bill. I'm really hesitant, just because, one, it's Christian Bale. It's just yes, he at least for the longest time, he has been known to go the extra mile. I haven't seen the movie Vice yet, but you can tell that, he will put himself through physical exertion, beyond belief, to completely transform himself into the character. He'll go on extreme diets if he has to, and go through, a lot of, exercising or lack thereof just to fit it. Because it shocked me that he played, Vice President, Dick Cheney in Vice.
That was impressive.
Yeah, because I was sitting, it was actually when I saw, what movie was it that I saw? I think it was Aquaman. When I saw it in theaters, and it played Vice in the trailer. And I was sitting with my friend Gavin at the time, and we were both wondering, being does he look familiar? Does he not look familiar? And then finally they show his name and being that was fucking Christian Bale.
Yeah.
For real. But I don't know either, because he's also too known to be one of those, Hollywood hotties.
Mm-hmm.
At times
I believe that Christian Bale could become a horse.
Well, after I just said that, but I'm not sure if I'm not sure if he can go that far. He is impressive when it comes to that, but I would honestly see somebody else playing him. I'm not 100% convinced with Christian Bale, just looking back at his, past roles, and it's just he's not really that kind of character. Or at least I haven't he's kind of almost typecast in kind of a way where it's just I've never really seen him be goofy.
I mean, he might surprise us yet again.
Well, here's my pitch for Beta Ray Bill, and I've always said this. Beta Ray Bill has a character, just oozes this chemistry with Thor. So the only person I think could really play him has to be somebody with a strong connection to Chris Hemsworth. So I say get Liam Hemsworth to be Beta Ray Bill.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that makes sense.
That would be interesting.
His real brother.
Yeah,
Right.
then that natural chemistry would be there.
Right.
We wouldn't
I
have
mean,
Christian
I
Bale,
would
we'd
wanna
have
see-
Kneale.
Go ahead, Mel.
I would want to see like Christian Bale like try to tackle a superhero role because we haven't really seen him since, the Dark Knight trilogy playing. But his reasons were understandable because his friend Heath Ledger died at the time, and a lot of people actually did not know this, but they were going to make more of the Dark Knight series. They were actually going to make it more into a series of movies. But after Heath Ledger died, he pretty much, he lost one of his friends, and it didn't sit right with him. And he said, being like, I'll do one more, but only on the condition of this is it. I'm done after that. So I know that he'll refuse to play Batman, but superhero movies in general has been always on the fence because we haven't seen him do really much ever since. And I don't blame him. Like, that hit him hard from what I read. And I would want to see him try tackling the MCU like he tackled DC in his way. Do I think he was the best Batman ever? No. But I didn't think he was the worst. Well,
I mean, he's definitely coming into the MCU. I think that's confirmed. We just don't know who.
Right, and I think it should be a role that should fit more with Bale. As an actor, not as a person, but just as an actor, because I've never seen him play like anything else except for mostly serious, and that's typecast in a way. Like I've seen him like goofy at times, but it's always in somewhat of a serious way. So it would be really hard to go down the list of characters who haven't yet and pick like who would be perfect for him. I don't know if Bill will. And if he does play Bill, being like, well, the only thing I can hope for is that he surprises us and does a good performance with it.
I mean, he surprised us before. Something more surprising. Most of you probably know this already, but he was in Pocahontas, the Disney version.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he was
in Pocahontas?
Yeah, he was in Disney's Pocahontas. That's the young soldier kid person.
And then he was John Rolfe in The New World, which is a live action adaptation of the Pocahontas story itself.
Yeah, I didn't know that at all. I didn't know
You guys should
any
watch it. It's one of my favorite movies.
Christian Bale has more surprises.
All right. Now I'm like taken for a loop. I'm like, what's going on with this world?
Well, you have Disney Plus, so you can look up the information on Disney Plus.
Okay, moving on. Well, still this, because we haven't heard from AJ or Calum yet. Who do you guys think Christian Bale should play? MODOK. Do you guys have any guesses? Do you think he could do a superhero role or a supervillain role? Or should he be the next Groot?
I don't know. He's Christian Bale. He can method act anything.
Because I'll say there's so many Marvel characters, and if he's going to be part of Thor's new show, I don't know who would be a good character for that series.
Well, just off the top of my head, Gore the God Butcherer, who is essentially the villain that broke Thor. I guess that could be a thing. I don't know. I think he'd be better suited as a villain. If someone like pointed a gun to my head and said, pick somebody, I would be like, I don't know, Kang the Conqueror, maybe like Nightmare from Doctor Strange. I think either would be good roles for him. But hey, it's another big actor in one of the biggest franchises ever. So, moving on, getting a little closer to what one of our themes of the episode is going to be. Well, actually, no, I got something else first. It is unfortunate that we have lost somebody this week.
I had a feeling.
We have lost the son of a great writer. This writer created one of the biggest franchises in fantasy ever. That man was George R.R. Tolkien. And I believe his son passed away this past week.
The son of J.R.R. Tolkien, Christopher Tolkien, had unfortunately passed away at age 95. He had contributed to his father's works for some time, and if there was any expert on Middle-earth you had to go to during the previous years, Christopher was the first person that you would go to, and Percy Jackson was, for obvious reasons, heavily involved with him. And Christopher did a brilliant job carrying on his father's legacies and even writing some stories himself, and now he will rest forever. We miss you, Christopher Tolkien.
I'm not trying to make jokes, but do you mean Peter Jackson? Because you said Percy Jackson.
I said Percy Jackson? Oh, sorry, Peter Jackson, right.
I was going to say, I was pretty sure Rick Riordan wrote those books.
Sorry, I meant to say Peter Jackson. I was meant to say Peter. Mm-hmm. And Chris has just said, if he did not edit for his father, he would only have 4 books from Tolkien.
Okay, say that again, Calum, but this time into your mic.
Into my mic. If he did not edit for his father, he would only have 4 books from Tolkien.
Wow.
Yes.
Think about that. Like, I know his father is the famous one, but clearly by what Chris just said, this man also changed the way that pop culture is viewed.
Oh, yeah.
What do you guys think? This is definitely a loss.
Oh, definitely.
Do you guys have any opinions or things you'd like to say?
AJ?
No, I basically agree with you. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I have a lot of the books. I think half of them maybe have been edited by him, so I can't imagine if he didn't do what he did for his dad.
Good man. He's leaving behind a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Mel, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well,
it's okay if we like. We don't have to say anything if we don't want to. By the way.
Well, no, it's going to be a little bit deeper. Like, I agree with everybody else. Is that I think that's the word is a legacy pretty much died, and I think what people don't understand, because he was like what Calum said, being like. He was the keeper of his father's work. You know, he was the one who made it pretty much made it possible for his work to be more shined in the mainstream. I mean, he did wonders. Like, I did hear that anything that was touched of, you know, Tolkien's, nobody would not be able to write past if it wasn't for Christopher. But unless, like, he passed on that, like his father did to him, to any, you know, next of kin the same way. I think, honestly, Tolkien's pretty much like, or at least anything original of Tolkien is pretty much gone to the grave with Christopher. And that if anybody else touches, you know, things like Lord of the Rings and all that, it's not going to be held on a sacred regard. and it's a sad day. It was a sad day when I heard that news and being like, well, if there was anything good from Tolkien, that legacy died with Christopher.
Chris has just also typed up, and he's typing up more information, but he's currently typed up The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings film trilogies. If Christopher didn't curate Tolkien's other writings, we wouldn't have any extended lore. I adore the extended editions of those movies. They just bring out so much more of Tolkien and just immerse you even further into the world with deeper meanings and so many other things, and there's so many other stories in the books as well. Children of Hurin and various others. It takes a family member to know your family member's works, and he has done a tremendous job. Absolutely,
and to honor it in such a way, because, like, you know, not everybody like views like their families. Like, I hate to do a comparison here, but it's kind of like, you know, Christopher wasn't like, let's say, the Kardashians or Paris Hilton, for example, who took their family's legacies, which are different. Like, they weren't book writers. Like, for example, the Kardashians, their dad was the lawyer that got OJ off. And also, too, like, you know, Paris Hilton, you know, her family runs the Hilton, you know, empire of hotels. Whereas they, you know, pretty much like squandered any of their families, like, legacies or reputation, Christopher did not. He truly honored J.R.R. Tolkien's work. And yeah, it's like what you said. It's just like, you know, it's that thing that you just don't see, because majority of the time either people will just do it their way or they won't do it at all. And that's kind of like, you know, what humans are, is that we're selfish creatures at the end of the day. But Christopher didn't. He actually, like, not only honored his father's work, but also, you know, reintroduced it into the light and wanted it done as close to, like, his father's, you know, vision as much as possible. And unless he passed that down to his next of kin in the exact same way, it's definitely the official end of a legacy.
It's truly selfless. And Chris has also said that there is a Tolkien Foundation filled with people chosen by Christopher himself. They are the ones who chose who gets the rights and for how long. Thus far, they have been extremely careful as to who gets those rights.
And speaking of, like, Chris, and I'm talking about Chris, not Christopher. Chris, if I can speak for him for just a second, has been a fan of Lord of the Rings in terms of the books, The Hobbit, all of Tolkien's works. Chris has been a major fan of since a child. So I know, like, Chris and I talked a little bit about it, not a lot, but this hit him hard, and it should. Like, this is a big loss, and I think that this man should be honored just as much as his father was. But moving on to our final piece of news, which is a little more upbeat. Matilda, an older movie, it had a musical recently. I believe it was on Broadway. It had really catchy songs, like When I Grow Up, Revolting Children, and all of that. It is going to be getting a movie. I believe it is getting this movie in 2021. Or maybe it starts shooting in 2021. I'm not sure. But also Wicked is getting a movie. So we are on a dawn of upcoming musicals. What do you guys think? Do you think they can do these stories justice on film as much as they did on stage?
Ooh, if they do them well, they'll be defying gravity for sure.
I'm pulling my hair out. I'll let AJ go.
Oh, it was actually interesting. I read an article. I think Indina would love to reprise her role as Elphaba, even though I think they're considering Ariana Grande.
I mean, that would be interesting. I would throw Dove Cameron in there, personally.
Yeah. Well, I think that she would be more fitting for Glinda than Elphaba. Oh,
yeah, you're right. Well, that's what I meant.
Oh, sorry.
I worded it wrong. I apologize.
No, you're fine. It's going to be hard because Wicked has a lot of grand songs, so...
Why?
I feel like it's going to be a little difficult to make it like a movie musical. We have, like, high expectations.
There are, like, 3 musicals that are considered to be, like, the epitome of classics. One of them is Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, aye.
The other is Les Mis.
Oh, yes.
And the third one is Wicked.
Oh, aye.
So now, they're doing stuff with Wicked in a movie setting. I think, as a Broadway fan and a musical fan, I'm allowed to be a little nervous. Because the last Wizard of Oz movie I saw was Oz the Great and Powerful.
Yeah, but that had to be its own thing because it was Disney, so you couldn't really copy from the original movie or the Broadway.
Disney counts, right?
I mean, I definitely think, like, in terms of story, there's a good story here with what we had with Wicked. In terms of songs, these have become classics, like Popular, Dancing Through Life, Defying Gravity, obviously. Defying Gravity, of course. And, you know, it's just such a big musical, and it has such beautiful set design. And Wizard of Oz, of course, is one of those big films that everybody knows about. So I'm super curious that they can pull this off. And if they do, I think this might actually be like people's new Wizard of Oz. Like, if they can pull up the story, kids these days might view as what we felt when we saw Wizard of Oz the first time.
Yeah, I really hope they're very close resembling to the classic movie. I mean, I'm not saying they have to, but that would be a great bonus on my part.
Yeah,
I have
faith.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I have faith in this director. From what I've seen from his IMDb so far, he's directed several really good movies. He's directed the original Billy Elliot movie. He's directed Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, a film about autism, might I remind you, and a really good one. He's directed several episodes of the hit Netflix series The Crown. He has, he's also done The Reader. He's done The Audience. He's done really good movies. I have faith in this director. He's Stephen Daldry. That's his name, yes.
This sounds like a good track record to me. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just going to add on to what you guys were saying, because Wizard of Oz is still like the #1 best movie musical on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really? I didn't know that.
I checked the list today.
Mel, do you have any opinions? I know you're not a musical person.
If I had my camera on, you would see that I'm like pulling my hair and grinding my teeth.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm on Kneale's side of the fact of being like, okay, so it's not that I disdain totally like musical movies, but I think at one point in time they had an era that they were really good. For example, like, Sound of Music, one of the best,
beautiful, yes,
musical, movies out of all time. But I think somewhere down the road, they died. And then, of course, we get the era that we've been in for a while when it comes to musicals. And that was when Moulin Rouge came out, and I fucking hate that movie. I
also strongly dislike Moulin Rouge, but cannot swear, so I'm not going to say anything else about it.
But ever since, it's like we've been getting... Because I'm sorry, Les Mis was not good as a musical movie. It was not. Like, that's what makes me nervous about them touching Wicked, is being like, you haven't had a good track record since from anywhere from, like, High School Musical, which I loathe so much. It's, and what makes me nervous is, like, if what AJ was saying was true, if they were thinking about throwing... Like, I do believe that they should have people who are musically trained this time. And not just being like, oh, you're a good actor. We think you could sing. It's just like, no, stick with your
Mel, niche. When it comes to musicals, we're all in this together, everyone.
And I am going to kill myself tonight. But, okay, so what makes me nervous is that I'm not huge into musicals, but I have seen Wicked before on Broadway. The last time I saw it was back in 2007. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And it was the best. Well, my grandmother didn't like it because she's one of those Christians to think that anything involving witches and all that is being like, no, that's the devil's work.
Fictional story, yeah.
But I enjoyed it. As it was, and it has become such a powerhouse where it's like it's in pop culture. Like, for example, who's that one singer that's right now really popular on the internet? Todd something. Like, he's done like his own spin-offs of like Wizard of Oz, Wicked. Even though he's right now a controversial, topic, at the moment because he has a tendency of ripping people off. Todrick Hall, that's his name, Todrick Hall. He's done quite a bit of that. And I do remember that, that Wizard of Oz movie that Disney made, and it was disappointing. And I get where AJ is coming from, being like they had to do their own thing because Disney did not own the rights to Wicked and did not own the rights to The Wizard of Oz. But it also too shows being like, why I have such a disdain for Hollywood now. If they were saying that this was going to be an independent film, I would have a little bit more faith, because lately Hollywood has not been hitting it right at all. Especially they have billions of dollars that they could be giving to independent directors. Even just a little bit, like $10,000 for an independent director can go a long way with them. But instead, they end up, either coming out with like okay mainstream stuff that they know that everyone's gonna like, or they're just gonna shit on a movie. And sometimes that rare moment of, oh, this was actually a good movie that Hollywood made. And what terrifies me is that even though, yes, it would make more sense for Ariana Grande to play a role because she is musically trained and is a singer by design, but that doesn't mean they can act. Like, I know she's acted before, but I've never watched any of her material at all, and her music's okay. I wouldn't say it's great. I would say it's just generic pop at this point, but it does make me nervous of being like, we've been in an era where musical movies have not been that great, have not been that hot in a while, and that they keep displeasing, and I'm just afraid that they're just gonna shit on another musical.
Like they did with Cats.
Yeah, like Cats is the most recent example why people should be scared. It's just like I haven't seen the movie yet, but from the moment I saw the trailer, it was just like, this is going to be bad.
I thought the same thing, but I went, this is going to be bad.
And guess what?
Best way.
And guess what? From what I've read, it was terrible, and it's just like. And now you're talking about touching another Broadway musical that is an iconic thing. Like, Cats is iconic to a lot of people. And the fact that they destroyed that... And Chris, I disagree. I'm seeing
We'll talk more about Cats when we get into the musical topic of today's episode.
Yeah,
but
it's just... that should be an omen to people, is that... I'm not against like musical movies to have another rise again, because we haven't seen a good one in a long time. But this is just also to, if you are going to do it, don't try to jeopardize it. Don't try to bash it. Just end the shitty era once and for all, and then step away from it for a while. They are actually going to do Wicked. It's just like, just treat it like a Band-Aid, and then just let musicals die off for a little bit.
I think this could be good. I'm very hopeful this could be good.
I have no hope.
Hello.
Well, moving on. We have now properly got it past the news, and we are moving on to the show proper. First of all, who here has seen The Mandalorian?
I haven't.
Have you, Mel? You and Calum haven't?
No.
All
right, get out.
Quote Christopher Lloyd from Star Trek 3. Get out! Get out!
Yeah, you guys should probably leave. We'll message you. We are going to discuss Mandalorian. It'll be me and AJ. We can do this.
You couldn't wait another 2 weeks because we were going to watch it today.
We've waited a while.
I mean, I don't mind waiting until we make sure everybody's seen The Mandalorian.
Do we have another relevant thing to talk about in exchange?
I mean, I thought we were going to talk about, like, the expectations.
We can talk about Cats.
The expectations of movie musicals.
Oh, yeah, that's the topics, but this is, like, the relevant movie we have to talk about.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have not seen Cats. I guess me and Mel will sort of take a seat back. Do you guys want to discuss it? Because you've seen it.
I'm up for it.
Oh, by the way, for me, I don't care about spoilers, so go nuts. I've seen the original.
Yeah, same here. Like,
okay.
There's not really much to spoil regarding Cats. The story for Cats is really simple, which is why the film adaptation doesn't work. I mean, what's magic for theater isn't always magic for film. That's where this adaptation failed.
Well,
I mean,
I was about to say, they did that big change of making Victoria the main character, where in the original Broadway, there wasn't really a main character.
It was an ensemble piece, and people appreciated that it was an ensemble piece. In fact, this was based on a poetry book by T.S. Eliot, so it made sense that it was an ensemble piece. And people criticized Cats for not having much of a story. We're talking about the theatre version before going on to the film version because, comparisons. It was a spectacle, and people consider Cats a bit of a Marmite thing, even when it's made by Andrew Lloyd Webber, the genius behind Phantom of the Opera, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, Jesus Christ Superstar, and so many others. He's a fantastic writer, and I think his genius is also translated well in Cats. There's people like Animat who suggested that Cats is kind of a waste of time, even though the songs are good. The dance numbers are quite a spectacle, and you'd have to be an expert dancer to do a performance in Cats. And the costumes are really creatively done. How do you get people to look like cats in a way that's quite convincing? Get them in a theatrical costume, and some costumes are a bit more simple, like Grisabella has these high heels and a bit of a ruggish look, and that works for her. And there's other characters who are in certain clothes. And it's all done generally well. And despite the lack of a plot, Chris had a conversation with me that it's more of a character piece and how we're thrown into this situation and it's all chaotic, but the Cats eventually do find forgiveness and redemption. And I've worked on a theatre production like this. I've worked on this thing called Under Milkwood, and there was no main character in that either. It was an ensemble piece, and this is someone who's worked on theatre. Ensemble pieces can really work well. There's a bit of a fun in the fact that it doesn't make sense and it doesn't have to. And there's many characters and they all come together, form their own character, if you like, form their own identity, which is eventually what it's all about. And so you can see why Cats has made its impact. It's appealed to various ages, even if the Cats can arguably look a bit creepy. But nowhere near as creepy as the film adaptation, of course.
Yeah.
So yes, some songs have gone down in history. I remember studying McCavity in English back at high school, and Memory, of course, that's one of the Broadway greats. To do with T.S. Eliot's wife and Andrew Lloyd Webber's personal history as well, merged together. And someone I saw analysed character development within Grisabella, even though all these characters have little to no screen time compared to each other, they keep upstaging each other, but they give Grisabella the chance at the end because she's been struggling despite her pain, but she wears her pain like a badge, which is quite inspiring. And still, yeah, I can see why Cats has gone down in history. I haven't actually seen any adaptation of Cats, but I don't think I really have to. The songs speak for themselves, really, and not much of a plot, but it's gone down in history. But the film adaptation, however, they should have gone with the original theatrical design. They should have done what Sonic the Hedgehog did with completely redesigning the character. That would have been 10 times better.
I know AJ has thoughts on this.
Okay, yeah. So I saw the movie first, and I didn't hate it. I was actually intrigued by the movie. I didn't think it was good. There were problems, but it can be captivating, and the songs are good. The choreography is great because I believe the choreographer did Hamilton. And then I watched the 1998 Broadway version. Calum, you can find that on YouTube. There's a bunch of clips.
Yeah, nice.
So that was really good. And I do prefer the Broadway version now, but I don't hate the movie. And then I am very sad to hear that it was supposed to be an animated movie back in the 90s.
By Steven Spielberg.
Yep.
That would have been wonderful.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, which is why I drew Victoria the other day in that kind of way. I thought it would have been better, but yeah, this should have been
a feline Fantasia.
Yeah. All in all, it should have been an animated movie instead of a live action adaptation. Because
I hate to bring this up, but Oh, sorry, AJ, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, because I feel like the cats would look better with animation instead of what they try to do with the CGI. Because I don't know what they were trying to do with the CGI. Because some cats had clothes, some didn't. So I didn't really understand
Clothes
that.
merged into their suits.
Yeah, like.
And then Rebel Wilson, my gosh.
Oh yeah, and then the mice and cockroaches that was just, yeah. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
I do want to throw this out just because we were just talking about it. Do you guys think Wicked could work better as an animated? Because I was actually thinking about that.
There has been stuff like that on the internet. Yes.
I don't think it's like the same way as like Cats, where I would love to see it as an animated stuff. But so since she mentioned that, this is my 2 cents about it. Looking at the Broadway one, and I even seen like cosplays of the character Cats from the Broadway. The designs are really not that complicated. So in my personal opinion, it's like what Calum said too. They should have just totally did a redesign before they released this, being like the CGI just did not sit well at all, and being like, if you were going to do it live action, then you should have just made it like the costumes on Broadway. Like, if cosplayers can recreate that, so can Hollywood. And especially Hollywood, like I said, I've been having problems with them in recent years of being like, you have all this money where it's like you could hire costume designers still. You have all this money, and you didn't. But I think if they were going to go with the CGI thing, if they just not feel like, oh, we don't feel like making the hair or the clothes and all that, then you should have just made it completely animated. But I think with Wicked, it's a different story just because it's like, it doesn't matter which Wizard of Oz movie you have seen, but you could pull off live action as long as you don't. I think what made, some of, like the classic work is that they really didn't have much CGI. It was mostly practical effects. And it shows that practical effects can work. And also, too, due to the time. Like, time is everything.
And to their credit, they did have an amazing set design in the movie.
Oh, yeah. That was phenomenal. Especially back then, where just like it still ages well, is amazing to me. But I think, like, Wicked has the advantage of it can be animated. It can be live action. And that has a lot of leeway, unlike Cats, where they should have either just stuck with animated or more practical effects. Like, they should have just if they were going to throw CGI, it should only have played a minor role of helping with certain effects.
I was just going to add, like, if Wicked did become an animated musical, it would have to be by someone who has a distinct art style and not just copy how everyone looked in the Broadway, like Don Bluth for Disney or people like that.
Don Bluth would be amazing, especially when he's clever.
Well, and if they are going to make it into an animated thing, I think what would be in Wicked's favor a lot that would also make it stand out is that it should probably go back to mostly 2D. Because I've been wanting to see 2D come back to life for a long time. I'm a huge fan.
I think that would really work.
You should put Klaus.
Yeah, but it's like what
Go ahead. Oh, you're good.
But it's like what AJ said, is that they would have to have somebody with a distinct, style. Like, because if you just rip it off, then it's not its own thing, or you can't make it a unique revolutionary thing. It would just be like, oh, if I was just gonna watch this animated, ooh, I like that picture, but
that is a good style.
People on the internet have been doing animated Wicked fan stuff for some time.
Oh yeah,
I wouldn't mind watching that.
But I think Wicked has the upper hand over something like Cats, because you can't go wrong either way as long as the movie itself is good. Like, they still hold true and honor towards the original source. So I think it has more of an upper hand And then Cats, unfortunately, when it comes to that. Like with Cats, it's just like you either should have made this 2D or you should have done more practical effects and less CGI. You should have not have shown us like that horror. I thought when I first saw the trailer, I thought I was legit watching a horror movie because it scared me.
I loved it. I loved every second. It made me so happy.
It was so bad it was good for you, Kneale.
I just remember like something really good happened that day. I can't remember what it was, but something like really good happened to me, and I was in such a good mood. I go in to watch this trailer, and I am just confused, dumbfounded, and a little bit just a little bit of euphoria out of it, where it's just like, what is this disastrous piece of art that I get to dive into? I do hope to see it eventually. Fun fact about me, Neil Burris, musical fan. I don't like Cats the musical. I'm not a fan.
Really?
Yeah, I'd understand why.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I don't like it. It was always weird to me. I could never follow the plot perfectly.
Because there
it's
was
just
no plot.
confusing.
Yeah.
And I just remember being confused, bored, and just weirded out by the costume design. I know it's like really like something famous, but it scared me as a child. And going into this, I was the big thing for me was, oh my gosh, they have this incredible cast. They got Sirian McKellen. They've got James Corden, who's been in tons of musical stuff, like Into the Woods. And I was a little excited for it, and had the art design been a little less strange, maybe I would have seen it by now. But
right. Well,
I do think the cast probably like is the best part of the movie. I haven't seen it yet. I am going to.
Right. Well, with me, that you actually brought up another point that I think why Wicked might have a better chance than Cats is that Cats never had a plot, and I think that's what makes it more fitting to be a Broadway musical over a movie, and I think that was its biggest disadvantage, was being like, so you're going to make this simplistic Broadway, which for me, I totally disagree. I actually enjoy Cats as it is. I have not seen it live, but my mom did, and that's actually how I was introduced to Cats, was she loved it. And she pretty much said that she loved it for its simplicity of being like, out of all the Broadway stuff that she's ever seen, Cats was very simplistic, but in a good way. And the costume design, I can see why as a kid it might have horrified you, but it has nothing in comparison to the live action CGI. Being like, no, that's nightmare fuel on a whim. Like, I mean, what were they thinking? Like, I was just like, I support CGI to a degree, but not like what I used to, where it's just like, yeah, it's a revolutionary thing. Now it's just everywhere in my face and being like, well, it just shows CGI isn't always Cats shall haunt them. Like, pretty much.
Here's the thing with Cats, though, and this is why I think they scared me. There's this place, I live in Indiana, and in Indianapolis, we got a little theater that can put on big shows. Back in the day, what they would do is in between shows during the intermission, they would actually have a cast of an upcoming musical come out and do a performance from their musical. Usually it would be a melody, just so that people would see it and be like, I gotta go see this musical. So there I am watching, I don't even remember, it was probably something like Barney Live or something. Just some sort of like child's musical. And out of nowhere comes these people in fursuits getting on stage, dancing and singing. I don't know it's for cats. I don't know they're supposed to be cats. I just see these people in these creepy furry suits screaming at me in musical form.
That's true. Oh, which, by the way, since I know AJ and Calum have seen it, I do have this question because Eli's also too, or my roommate, is a Cats movie, and he was displeased from the get-go. But he heard some stuff, and I just want to clarify it's true, because this is one of those movies that we don't care
if it's spoiled, but we did hear that they cut quite a bit of songs out. Is this true, or did they stick with the original, song lineup?
See, I just watched the original Broadway once after the movie, but I think I would agree with you. I know they cut out Victoria's dance with, I think, Plato, right?
Oh, he's gonna hate that.
Oh, okay. And then, they changed the tones of two important songs. I mean, not important, main songs, which is the I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong. Rum Tug Tiger, right?
I think it's Rum Tum. It might be Tummel, Rum Tug Tumble.
Either way, that
I don't know. Cats is weird.
They changed the tone of that one, and then they really changed the tone and character of Mr. Mistopheles.
Oh, he's gonna hate that too.
Yeah, I don't. If he's a fan of Mr. Mistopheles, he's not going to like the movie version.
Yeah, he also too heard, and Calum, and you can verify this since I know that AJ, you only seen the actual Broadway musical once. Calum, is it true that they cut out the song "Memories"? Because that was his big thing.
No. I've heard "Memories" is in there.
Memories, the showstopper, sung by Jennifer Houston in this adaptation. I think it's Jennifer Houston. I think that's her name.
Hudson.
Hudson. I haven't actually seen it myself, but you know what? You don't need to know anything. It's no plot. There's songs, so I've practically already seen it, even though I haven't already seen it.
If you're not gonna sing "Memories," what's the point of doing the movie?
Right. Well, no, the weird thing in the movie was they kind of started out with it when Victoria met, what's her name? Her character, Jennifer Hudson's character.
I don't know. I've always called her the old cat that kind of looks like it might have diseases.
Isabella.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, she sang a little bit, and then Victoria suddenly sings the new song that I believe Andrew Lloyd Webber and Taylor Swift made, which again intrigued me because I think in the original Broadway, Victoria was just the dancer. She didn't sing, but then in the movie, she sings this brand new song. And then later on, she does sing "Memory," but they did it in the Les Mis movie way where it's just focused on that one character the entire time singing.
And people wonder why I have such a fear nowadays of musicals, because that displeases just to know. In my personal opinion, it's I'm not against songs being added on, but if they weren't in the original lineup of a musical, what's the fucking point?
I mean, it's not a bad song. It kind of fits the musical, but I wouldn't say it's grand or anything.
I didn't hate Evermore and Beauty and the Beast. I do think adding songs can sometimes be good. In Aladdin, silence was okay. I mean, it totally stopped the movie, but it was okay.
I was just going to say, I actually cried when they played Evermore just because I got I had a lot of Phantom of the Opera vibes from that song, and it was just so beautiful.
That would fit Phantom of the Opera, actually.
I have different opinions about it. I think if it works, you got to make it work if you're going to add it. Because I personally do not like the live action Beauty and the Beast, and being
neither do I.
I'm okay with it.
Me too.
Sucks.
Adding here's my problem with adding stuff into something original. It's just it causes confusion, especially for those who haven't seen a certain version. For example, Beauty and the Beast, Evermore's only in the Broadway version. It's not in the animated version, which draws more confusion and draws a weird placement. I love this song Evermore too. That song, at least, I cry every time I watch the Broadway version too.
I hate to be that guy. I'm pretty sure Evermore is only in the movie version, right? Isn't it If I Can't Love Her in the Broadway version?
Yeah, it is If I Love Her in the Broadway, and then I think Evermore was inspired by that.
Yeah, you could say that the live action remake was somewhat an adaptation of the Broadway version.
Right. What they were trying to do with that one was they were trying to combine what we knew with the cartoon version and combined it with the Broadway version, which is
and failed.
And because you have to have it make sense. You have to, or else it's just not going to blend. Like when I saw it in the movie, I was just like, I love this song. Do not get me wrong. However, it does not fit. Especially they were trying to blend two elements at the same time, and it's just like it doesn't work. And I think that's the, like if they are going to learn anything from musical movies, especially of recent, and if they are going to make Wicked a movie, and they just have to look back on the past of what they've done and being like, okay, this worked in the movie, it did not work in the movie. Maybe we shouldn't combine stuff. Either, here's what they need to learn, either add it nothing but soul Broadway, and you can change it up a bit to make that, 2-hour cut of movies. But if you're going to add, have it make sense. That's all I have to say. And from what I heard from Cats was just a lot of decision making was not there. And they were just like, oh, we're just going to add this, or we're going to take away this, or we're going to change it in a way that doesn't make sense for those who actually like Cats. And especially it is a simplistic Broadway, production. I just did not think it, I think it had a lot of disadvantages, and being like, this wasn't going to work at all. And I'll see it over time, but I probably won't spend movie theater prices on it at all. I'll probably wait till it comes out on Netflix.
Yeah, when I finished watching it, I definitely wanted to see the movie again, because I consider the second watch the best watch, and I really do wanted to see that movie again, but it's not enough for me to pay for a ticket. I'm just going to wait for it to come on DVD.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think that they just need to treat like Cats as like an omen for Wicked, I think. As this is why Cats failed, just don't do the same thing. Like, I don't believe that they should totally rip off the Broadway either, because then that leads to another problem of, well, if you're just going to, have a shot-by-shot remake of something,
then what's the point of making it?
correct.
Yeah. So I do encourage, originality, or it just has to make sense, but don't completely rip it off. That's why I'm not a huge fan of live action adaptations of Disney either, is because they've been at least either they totally botch it, or they just do a shot by shot, replay. And it's like, I've already seen this. I just saw Lion King, and I fucking hated it, because there's I might as well just watch the cartoon.
Lion King is the first Disney live action adaptation I legit got mad at. I thought the same thing. I could have been just watching the anime movie.
Right, with better actors too. I was so mad at their choice. But anyway,
I think it's time to move on to the next topic, because this is actually applicable to that. In terms of musicals, Broadway, on stage, movie musicals, of course, there's always a transition when you're going into, the films. And whether you were, let's say Lion King, for example, because it was brought up, and you're going to Broadway, and then you're going to a live action, air quotes, remake, or it's Beauty and the Beast, where you kind of started on Broadway. Well, you started way back in the day as a story.
We're going to make $1 billion through this live action remake.
I might be wrong. I think there was a Beauty and the Beast Broadway, or at least live show before Disney. I don't know. I might be wrong about that.
I don't know. It was after. No.
It was after. Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, it was after.
Well, the point. Well, I guess then with Wicked, where it was originally a Broadway thing, and now it's going to be making the jump to movies. I'm wondering, and Les Mis also fits that mold. I'm wondering, what are expectations, what are thoughts, and what are feelings when you're going in to musicals and such? And I guess maybe a little more of a personal note for all of us. What are specifically our experiences with musicals? And you can follow your own definition of what a movie musical is. Like if it's like Shrek the Musical, where they're just filming the stage version, or if it's like Aladdin the Musical, where, I mean, Aladdin the live action remake, where it's of the original animated, but now it's live action, or it's Les Mis and stuff like that. You come up with your own definition here. What do you guys think just going into musicals, and what do you think they should be? AJ, if you would like, you can go first.
I guess my definition of a movie musical is an adaptation that has more advantages from the Broadway because they have more money to make either like the sets grand, hire more known celebrities, but in my opinion, it has to be celebrities who have experience with singing or Broadway. And, you know, maybe like add something or improve something that did not work in the original Broadway. Good movie musicals that I can think of. It's like Sound of Music, West Side Story, which is getting a remake movie in December. Trying to think what else. And okay, I don't consider this the best, but for Aladdin, I'm like one of the few who will defend it because it has a lot of heart. It tried to like honor the original by keeping some things and adding new stuff that works.
I'm on your side here.
Yeah, and
you will not be silent.
But yeah, see, it had more money, it could make it more grand. It just for some reason fell flat. So with like Wicked or West Side Story, I hope that it honors the original Broadway and like maybe make the sets more grand, and maybe if they do add new songs, make it relevant to the musical. I hear West Side Story is taking out maybe one or two songs from the original. I can't remember which ones. They aren't like ones that made me mad. I wish I could remember which ones they considered taking out. But yeah, I think that's my idea of a movie musical.
Ah.
Well, if they didn't make you mad, then it probably wasn't like they had it coming and the ones like that.
For some reason, I think one of them was I Feel Pretty.
Really?
No, they can't.
That's going to be controversial.
Let me double check. Somebody talk while I double check.
Okay. Calum, do you have thoughts? I mean, I got a lot to say about this, so I might go last.
You're the Broadway guy, and yet somehow Chris is more of a Broadway guy because he's told us that his dad's a music teacher. Fun fact, everybody. So my thoughts on movie musicals. Obviously, I think I've stated in the past that what works for a book doesn't work for a film, or what works for a film doesn't work for a book. In this case, what works for the theater doesn't work for film. What works for a film doesn't work for a theater. The thing is, when you're adapting a musical, you need to be careful. For the most part, people see it as, okay, we're going to envision this as what the musical would be like as a movie. So see the actual sets and seen fully realized, as it were. And see what it would be like if it was set in actual specific locations, unless they take a more theatrical approach. I mean, there's a certain magic when you go into the theater, and because of this, there are some adaptations that work better in the theater rather than the movies. Although, if you're making a movie musical, you've got to take advantage of the visual medium and what the audience sees and doesn't see. Got to take advantage of the cinematography, the set design, the costumes. You've got to take advantage of good actors. You've got to take advantage of how the music is going to progress the plot. Because, I mean, musicals are fun and dandy, like Calamity Jane and Jungle Book. But if you want me to take musicals seriously, then I'd say the best musicals are the ones that feature songs that progress the plot, as well as having leitmotifs, are they called? Yeah, where they repeat certain music to re-emphasize different emotions and such.
Oh, I agree. I love it when they do that.
I
also think a good thing that musicals have over normal movies is musicals are a good way to just spout, like the songs are good ways to spout exposition. like to explain how a character feels about a situation.
Right.
But I think we need an outside perspective on all this. And Calum, I believe you have brought us that in the form of today's reaction video.
Yes, I have brought along my good friend Bizarro Guy from the Stardust app. And he has mentioned his thoughts on movie musicals and his own personal favorite musical. So, Chris, take it away.
Oh, also, I was wrong. That was for the West Side Story revival show. I don't know what they're doing with the movie's soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
I'm more upset that they're taking him out of the revival. But Chris, the reaction.
Let's put out the lights. Let's put on the show. Let's prepare the maestro.
It's time to start the music. It's time to put up lights.
This is a reaction to Reactaholics' topic on musicals. And, yeah, I'm not the biggest musical guy. I don't hate musicals or anything, but there's very few that could really capture my attention. I feel like sometimes they focus too much on the music, sometimes they focus too much on the characters, or maybe the story, or just it all doesn't clash well. There are exceptions like animation, live action, Laws of Horror being my favorite, but again, that's just me.
So there you go. He and I have been keeping in touch with each other in Stardust as of lately. We keep mentioning each other because he's just a pretty cool guy with those sunglasses there. And as you have heard there, he mentioned that he wasn't too much of a musical fan, but with that said, he has mentioned that his favorite musical is Little Shop of Horrors.
I'm not a big Little Shop of Horror guys, really. I like it, but I'm not a big guy for it.
Really? It's like a staple. But
I mean, I like it all right. It's just, not really my thing.
Right. Which, I don't know if Calum wanted to finish, his intake of, your question.
Yes, I have a few other things to say. Obviously, you've got to see some classical examples of musicals and movies that are just timeless, like The Sound of Music. I still adore The Sound of Music. The music really does progress the plot and really give us insight into the characters. Sometimes they can be a bit too theatrical, like in West Side Story. I enjoyed that, but you've been to the theater, right? Where you're going in, getting your popcorn, getting comfortable, and they're playing the music in the background. So they do that in the West Side Story movie, assuming that we're just getting ready and sitting down. But we're ready to see the movie. And the intro just goes on and on and on and on and on. Just get on with it, please. We're waiting. There's only so much I can take of minimalist Rainbow New York for so long. Just show us the movie. Please. So yeah, sometimes they can go a bit too far, but they've moved on from that phase, thankfully. And although I will say, one thing that they do right, these classic movies, they sometimes do interludes in between the first act and the second act, which I quite like, because it gives people a break to get to the toilet and think, see their thoughts. So far, so good, and plays of music that they played so far, like in Fiddler on the Roof, that worked quite right. And obviously there's certain other things, and sometimes it can really move you. Sometimes music can just be so breathtaking. It would just take you away, immerse you in the story. I still think, whether on stage or on movies, Les Miserables is, in my opinion, the best musical ever. There's just music that keeps coming back to re-emphasize characters' emotions. The actors, they're giving it their all, and the fact that they are good actors really makes the scenes that much more powerful. Say what you want about Russell Crowe, but he's also giving it his all in his own ways, but as a tough security guard. And there's other bits I really admire. And I don't know if you guys already know this, but the ending of Les Miserables makes me cry every single time I watch it. And I'm not much of a heavy crier, but I cry every single time that ending plays. Just him dying, going up to the heavens, just Fantine's ghost thanking him for what he's done. It's proper, lip blubbing and it's really moving. So yeah, it's all fantastic.
I was gonna say, Les Mis was actually the first musical that got me into musicals, because I saw the trailer for the movie and I was a huge Jackman fan, so I did all my research. I read the book, I loved the book, and then my mom took me to see Les Mis for.
You read the book? That's a big book.
Yeah.
It's a big book.
It is. And then my mom took me to see the play for my birthday, and like you, Calum, I cried at the end. I was sobbing my eyes out. So if it wasn't for Les Mis, I would not be a fan of Broadway or musicals.
I think in terms of Les Mis, weirdly enough, I also have a story with Les Mis. I grew up loving Broadway and shows like that, but I kind of had an out period where I just wasn't exposed to them anymore. And I just sort of, I guess, I didn't dislike them, but I just wasn't being like around them anymore. And then our band teacher started playing like the Les Mis anniversary concert. And slowly it got me into it. And then I was like, oh, there's a Les Mis movie coming out? Okay, here we go.
I watched the anniversary version first before seeing the movie, yeah.
I love the anniversary version because Ramin is my favorite Broadway actor of all time.
I apologize. My cat has realized that I'm going to be talking about Broadway, and he's like, no, stop him. You don't understand what you're doing.
Right. Well, I have like a bit of opinions of my own of like what can work and what can't. And mine should be a little bit shorter. As well.
You can still stop this, please. Don't let Kneale start talking about Broadway, please.
Well, Kitty, that's why I'm going first real quick, so that way your dad can get it done and out of the way. Because he's going to take forever.
Evermore.
Right. Well, in my personal opinion, like, I think I agree with what AJ and Calum said about, you have to think about, effects, production, all that, especially when you're turning it into a Hollywood movie. But you have to know, I think, you have to know if you're making like a movie adaptation. This is where a lot of musicals have not really hit home with me, is that I think they forget the difference between what is played in the theater compared to the movie theater. Like, for example, Calum brought up like a good point of intermissions. Musicals, they in Broadway theater, or just going to a theater in general, they have intermission time, and movies have to realize that, being like, some musicals can go on for hours, and that's why they have intermissions, and being like, and then you have to see what works, and so that way you don't have like this weird gap and just filling it in. But I think the most important is if you are doing like just a movie musical where it has no adaptation or no original source material like a Broadway musical, you have to have something that stands out. Whether it's the acting, the songs, like stuff that, that's going to be remembered forever. Like, for example, one of my favorites is actually Singing in the Rain.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's memorable. Like, those songs will last forever, like, even to the point that A Clockwork Orange had to make it traumatizing for some people that can never listen to that song again.
Oh,
but
gosh.
Yeah. Like songs that will live on in everyone's hearts. And if you put the effort into that, because that's what I expect when I walk in to see a musical, of any form, is I want the songs to be stuck in my head. Like, another example, Frozen, as much as I don't like the movie, this song, I will still remember Let It Go. Because of how impactful, and you could tell that they had, like, time and care with
Alright.
where it will stay with you forever.
Oh,
even
aye.
if you like the song or not.
Alright. I mean, say what you want about Frozen, but I must say, Frozen is a well-developed musical, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Right, where it sticks with you, like same with Sound of Music, like why those live and other ones die out is the memorability of not only the acting or the cinematography or the setup or the effects. It's the songs. Like, that's what makes, in my opinion, or what I expect to go in. It doesn't matter if I'm seeing it just in the theater or seeing it as a movie, is I expect the songs to stick with me. Even if I don't like the songs, but I still can remember, like, the song, or at least hum it to myself. And that's what makes great stand out. Like, that's why a lot of people do like Cats, even though it's simplistic, but everyone knows the song Memories. Like, that's one of the biggest ones, and it sticks with you. Or, or like in The Sound of Music, everyone knows the hills are alive with the sound of music. It sticks with you no matter how old it. I expect musicals to kind of age like fine wine, and I think you can say that with any musical or any movie, is that it doesn't matter how old it is. The newer generations will still see it.
I know, I'm introducing my kids to it.
Right.
I have a very specific way I'm going to introduce my kids to musicals. I've got this whole plan. Go ahead, Mel.
But that's the important part, and I think that's where some musicals do not work, or at least making adaptations of it is it's not as memorable, but they do one good thing, and I think this is with any adaptation. Is the only way that a bad adaptation works is that it gets people to go back to watch the good stuff. Like, even though this isn't a musical, but, hypothetically, The Grinch. Both versions of the original sucked, but it did do one right thing. It made people go back to the book and go back to the original cartoon movie. The ones that have outlived any other adaptation thus far. And that's what I expect musicals to do for me when I step in, is being like, I want to be able to remember you, and in the most fondest of ways, and not being like, oh, you suck, I'm going back to the original.
I suppose we're all looking for art that is pretty much timeless in general, so yeah, that pretty much strikes home.
Right, and I think that's the important part about musicals, that, that have a kindred spirit to any other form of art, is that it does hit you home. That you will remember it even when it's, even if it's like 2060 and I'm an old woman, but I can still be like, I remember when I was a kid watching, Wicked on Broadway for the first
I remember doing the time warp, drinking those comics when the blackness within me.
Pretty much. And that's what I think. That's what I think that I expect from any musical, is I expect it to outlast. Like, for example, Moulin Rouge, the only reason why that has outlived was because people started talking about it recently. But that's it. Otherwise, I have not heard anybody being... Or, like, another one that is an unpopular opinion of mine is Repo, the Generic Opera. I hate that movie.
That's on my watch list, actually.
I hate that movie.
I have never heard of that movie.
I don't know if you'd like it, Calum.
Okay, thanks.
They had a good idea of mixing rock and roll and metal with opera, but they failed.
I'm instantly sold on just the idea of that.
And, okay, but that has turned into a cult classic of its own right, of being like, it hasn't been out for that long. I want to say it came out in the 90s or the early 2000s, and it was so underrated, but now it has a cult following, and that just proves being like, even though I personally think it's garbage, especially since I'm the type of person being like, I love opera and I love metal music. And I have heard bands who combine both, like, for example, Within Temptation, Nightwish, they pulled it off, but this movie didn't, because it wasn't that the instrumentals were shitty, like, they were actually good. The voices, though, bothered me. They did not pick anybody who can sing for a damn. Oh. But why that lives on is that people remembered it was such an underground thing.
that it's lived today, and I get shocked when I hear people being like, I loved Repo the Generic Opera. You did? Were you on crack at the time when you watched this? But it speaks
maybe.
But that's like a good example is it's outlived, but it was an underground thing. But the point of it is that it still stays with people's memories. And I think that's what makes it work. Like, its counterpart would be The Sound of Music. Almost everyone I know loves it. And it's been out since, I think, the 60s. And we're now in 2020. And people still remember it. Still remember the songs. And that's where I think, what Hollywood needs to remember with things like that is there's some things that work in a theatrical release on Broadway in comparison to a movie, but also remember being like, we just have to make this timeless, like actually put the care. And that's all I have to say.
I definitely think that's a good take. I definitely agree with a lot of what you said. However, I do want to draw attention to something that Calum mentioned earlier. When Calum was talking about like an old woman talking to like their children, like their grandchildren about musicals in the day, instantly my mind went to like, Grandma, can you tell us a story of your youth? Here, child, sit on down. I'm going to tell you a story about a plant that keeps eating people and sings songs. I'm going to tell you about a war where everybody was shooting each other and singing. I'm going to tell you about a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania. And how about that one time the Beetlejuice got on stage with a whole opera and SpongeBob stopped a volcano? All the while there were cats in the background talking about memories jumping around. It was a better time. That's going to be me, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Who are we kidding? I'm not going to have children.
You may never know, Kneale. You may never know.
Maybe that's my musical story. Just looking back on my life and going, here's all the other musicals. Aren't they weird? But speaking of stories, Mortis, I'm talking about this. You can't stop me. No, you can't stop me. I'm going to do this. There's nothing you can say to stop it now. Just be a good kitty. All right, so my first ever introduction to proper Broadway musicals was, I was a big fan of Peter Pan back in the day. And just randomly, while Adam Meyer, Mortis, you can't stop this. Just randomly, while Adam Meyer, I found in one of those bargain bins, a disc that was Peter Pan, and it was a filmed version of the stage production of Kathy Rigby's Peter Pan.
I have that on VHS tape. I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Okay, we will talk more about this later. But I watched that, and I just absolutely loved all of it. Like, it is, if you're a fan of Peter Pan, you will absolutely adore this. Mm-hmm. If you're a fan of the J.M. Barrie story, it's really good, and it's actually available on YouTube. So
it is, yeah.
I recommend going and watching it. But the songs just really sucked me in, and the fact that the effects, freaking Kathy Rigby looks like she's flying. I got sucked into this thing so quickly. And go ahead, AJ.
I was just going to say, in my opinion, the Kathy Rigby Peter Pan has my favorite version of Captain Hook.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. This Captain Hook is serious, but also funny.
Yeah.
And I actually got to see the live stage version of this at one point.
Yeah.
I believe it was one of the last shows they did. And he comes out on stage, and everybody booed. And he just looks in the audience and yells, "I haven't even said anything yet!" And it was wonderful. And I was like, I love you already. But, yeah, that was really my suck-in. And from there, I sort of got more into like the Disney musicals and stuff like that. And I kept taking everything I could find. And then I had an out period. And then I got back into musicals slowly. It started with Les Mis, like the concert for Les Mis. It was at its peak when I actually got to go to New York and see Phantom of the Opera live. And then it was smaller things like the Star Kid musicals on YouTube and stuff like that. It slowly brought me to where we are today, where I am this big musical lover and I know about obscure stuff. I know about current stuff. Like, I think the cool thing about musicals, I guess I'll talk about the reverse for a second, where you take like something that was a movie and then make it a Broadway thing. Like, for example, Shrek the musical, I feel like is much deeper than the original Shrek. Because it takes this story, which was about, oh, don't judge a book by its cover and everybody deserves a happy ending, and takes it to, here's this person who has filled his life with these walls. And here is the people that can break down his walls and his fight to let people in and let him feel. And it's...
And the fact that at one point he got so angry he sang Donald Trump's national anthem.
Okay. But there was also a point where... Oh yeah, you're right. I remember that song. Well, Build Me a Wall just to... Okay, I'll share my thoughts on this real fast. Build Me a Wall is about Shrek denying the people who are in his life. And he's physically like going to build a wall in a swamp. But also it's like, I'm not letting anybody in anymore. I'm done with people. And I think it speaks a little more to the deepness. And Who I'd Be is an amazing song. And SpongeBob the Musical is really good. I think the example I'm going to bring up, though, is Beetlejuice the Musical, because I believe that takes the original source material and just makes it better. Like, I don't know if that's a controversial opinion, but they focus way more on Lydia. Beetlejuice is funnier in it. The songs are really deep. Specifically, Dead Mom gets to me. And it's just really more heartfelt and has a better message. And I think I like it much more than the original. And in terms of set design, it's a Tim Burton musical. It brought to life. Come on, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Go
ahead,
AJ.
I was just going to give another example. Then there's Young Frankenstein. I got to see that at a dinner theater. And I think it would have been so interesting to see the original Young Frankenstein with, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank for some reason. Gene Wilder, thank you. He's one of my favorite actors. I don't know why I forgot. But I would love to see the original movie do the musical of Young Frankenstein, because Mel Brooks worked on both of them. But I love the songs in the Young Frankenstein musical, so I would just love to see the original actors do that if it was a movie musical.
Unfortunately, that would be impossible because majority of the cast is...
Well, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, if it started out as a movie musical with these songs.
I agree. I would have loved to see it that way. The transition here, though, is, when you're taking something that was originally a musical and you got to fit it into like a movie, it's a whole different ballpark, because you've gone from this thing that's usually allowed to be like 4 hours to something that significantly less time. And you get an intermission in musicals. You don't traditionally get that in movies. And as Calum said, when you do get it in movies, it's weird. Like, for example, I think a good film adaptation, and I know there's some people who don't like this, I happen to like it, is Into the Woods. I think that takes... Oh, my cat just jumped on me. I think that takes No. I'm going to stop this before it begins. No. You can't stop this, Mortis. But I think that Into the Woods really balances what it was. Like, we've got James Corden as the baker. I think that's a great casting. I never would have chosen. And of course, like, how can I not bring her up? I'm blanking on her name now, even though I just thought about it. Emily Blunt, thank you. Is she the one who plays the witch?
Oh, no,
that's Meryl Streep.
Okay, Meryl Streep, that's who I meant. Although Emily Blunt is also very good. But Meryl Streep is just incredible in the movie. And JacksonHendrix is pretty good as Cinderella.
Yeah.
I just think it's a really good, loyal adaptation. They did everything they were supposed to do. They answered what comes next after the story ends. And the songs were top-notch. I really liked it going in. I think when it comes to the Disney live-action remakes, they struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
I think they forget what made these songs so impactful. Like, Aladdin just cut out the villain song, which I don't like. I love me a good villain song. But with Lion King, what the heck were you doing there? Like,
to be fair...
you're good. You're good, AJ. You're good.
To be fair, they would have had me if they went along with like that last minute where his voice got higher and higher and it sounded like the original. If they used that last minute and like made that the rest of the song instead of just talking, it would have been really great.
I definitely agree that there could have been a really good be prepared moment. But unfortunately, there wasn't. It was just talking.
Yep.
And I hated it because when someone sings Be Prepared, it's supposed to be menacing. There's a certain way you have to sing Be Prepared. It's a shining new era is tiptoeing nearer. And when do you fit in? Just listen to teacher. You can't sing it without this evil charisma. And then when it comes to the actual movie, like, they just talk it. It's not good. It takes away what was great about that song. Mortis, just let me vent. I looked into my cat's eyes when I said that. I don't know if that makes me crazy.
Probably.
But in terms of musicals, I think the best way to adapt them, honestly, is to get someone who really likes the source material and really can add something for it. Like, for example, look at what happened with Tim Burton and Sweeney Todd. Like,
Right.
Sweeney Todd, I think, is one of the most loyal and at the same time one of the best transitioned into live action, to where there are a good group of people who like the original less than the movie version. And that's something hard to do, like, in this fan base.
Oh, yeah.
Make a movie better.
I completely agree, because I think, I think that's the other part that, like, I forgot to mention is, even though it's hard to adapt, a Broadway production into a movie, like, we've seen it over and over. Like, I'm sorry, the biggest one for me is Mamma Mia. Great on stage, shitty on film. Because the hardest part about doing an adaptation of a musical is staying true to what it was. And I think, why Sweeney Todd has worked in recent years and why people still tend to enjoy it is because you got people who, from what I heard, a lot of people who were involved in the movie actually saw the original Broadway version. And they didn't want to steer away from, like, what it was about, but still made it in their own way. Like, I think also, too, they were really smart with how they, did the transitions and the intermissions, being like, they still kept the story going without having to stop being like, shit, well, they had, like, a 30-minute intermission after this one bit. What are we going to do? And so they were able to transition through and being like, we are making a movie version of this. it's just all about, you have to look at your source materials and being like, what can work in a film when it comes to Broadway and what can't. And I think that's why, you know, a lot of people have been, you know, skeptical. Like, for example, me, I have been skeptical over, like, you know, musicals. Is because it's like I said about Cats, it's just like Cats didn't work because it's not like Wicked or Sweeney Todd or shit, even the Lion King, you know, musical adaptation. You know, why it didn't work was because they did not focus on the entirety of the musical and figuring out what can be done. Because on average now, movies are about 2 hours long. And you have to fit, it's kind of like, you have to think of musicals similar to a book, what can and cannot work. Like Lord of the Rings, for example, they were able to cut away some things that were forgiving to cut away, even though it left, you know,
like Tom Bombadil,
yeah, even though, like, for example, with me, I read all the books, and when the first time I saw it, I was a little bit miffed with certain parts they took out, but the older I got, it was like, actually, that makes sense because this film was already pretty lengthy, and if we're going to add every single thing, either we would have like 10 movies at this point, or the films would be up to 5 hours apiece. And no one can't sit that long to watch a movie.
I can.
Well, ideally, well, like, it's different watching it like at your home than an actual movie theater. You know what I mean? And they did it smart, like because they knew how long the movie was going to be. You know, they were able to have intermission times. Like, I remembered, you know, seeing the second and the third one in theaters, and they had intermission breaks within like a certain time, being like, okay, we're about almost 2 hours, take a 15-minute, go to the bathroom, then come back and we'll start the movie. And I think that's the biggest problem is they need to treat musicals like books of being like, what can be put into a 2-hour film and what can't. And if you are going to put this in, how are you going to transition it? And I think that's why, for example, Cats, and I just looked this up too, why it got a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. They did not understand their source material at all. They were just like, Cats is a popular musical for a lot of people. We're going to make this into a movie. And I think that's the biggest problem is that Hollywood has just been, you know, they've been on the point of trends for quite some time where it's like, as long as it's popular, they'll dish it. And I think it's the lack of care. That's the problem is that, oh, well, the chart says kind of mentality. And I think that will be musicals' like biggest doubt. Its ultimate demise is if Hollywood still treats it like cash cow. And being like, oh, people love musicals, it's a trend. And being like, yeah, but have you actually sat down, saw this, and talked to, you know, people who actually enjoy the film? And I think that's why Sweeney Todd worked in recent years was because they actually sat down and being like, why is this such a popular thing? And how are we going to translate it into film that makes sense but still stays true? Because there was bits that they did cut out, but it was justifiable and it wasn't too much of a hindrance to the film version.
Yeah, actually, when I was a little jaded going into Sweeney Todd because when the intro starts, they play like the theme to like, they just play like the music, the soundtrack lines to the main song of the Broadway musical, which is I Tell the Tale of Sweeney Todd. That they just play the whole na 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 na, and me as a Broadway fan, I just start screaming, "No, you play the whole song, you sing it, you do the intro." But no, they still nailed the movie regardless of taking out what might have been their most popular song.
Oh yeah, because I was the same way too. First seeing it was being like, "How dare you!" But watching the whole thing, it was like it actually made sense in the movie version because it was able to transition, still stay true, but also to, because I think this is what musical movies need to start realizing,
is that at the end of the day, they are movies. There is stuff that they have more advantage of than Broadway. Like, for example, Calum brought up being like, they have the advantage of money where it's like they can, you know, they can make the costuming look better. They can hire actual orchestras if they wanted to. They can actually hire professional, you know, choreographers. But they also, too, need to understand being like, well, what makes a Broadway, you know, adaptation so great is the fact that they do have to work with what they got. They are not Hollywood. So it's mostly of the awareness of, at the end of the day, you're still a film. And there's some things that you can do better than the Broadway version, obviously, but there's also some things you can't do. And I think with Sweeney Todd, I'm glad you pointed that out, because not many people I know have seen the Broadway version at all. And people did look at me being like, why were you at first so floored with the beginning? It's like they took out the fucking song. But then it worked for the film because it was like it recognized what it was. It was a film adaptation of a Broadway thing. It was not a Broadway production. And I think that if people start honestly recognizing that and being like, at the end of the day, you are not on Broadway, you are a movie film, there could be another era again of musicals that are good. Instead of having to be like, oh, well, there's one that was good the past 10 years, but I haven't seen one since.
Hashtag do Star Wars the musical.
No.
But I think we all had varied thoughts on this. It was a very interesting discussion. I think just to finish my thoughts, I'm glad that musicals have sort of followed me throughout my years and seem to be only getting more steady with Matilda and, of course, the new West Side Story and the new Wicked coming out. So, and Hamilton.
Right, and then for me, I love the musicals that have stayed with me throughout the years. I just want to see an era again where I can actually sit down, hear that a musical movie is coming out without having to feel some type of dread again. Because that's where I've been at for a while. Ever since Moulin Rouge, it's, even with Sweeney Todd, even though I liked Sweeney Todd, it was still that moment of dread. Of being like, great, another fucking movie musical.
I mean, I had that with superhero movies for a while, and look at us now. But speaking of superheroes, speaking of adaptations, and even to some degree, speaking of musicals, it is time for our final topic. And that brings us to the wonderful subject of theme parks. So far, there have been several theme parks that have taken from movie IPs and to extension, even just book ideas and stuff like that. Calum, stop laughing, I'm speaking. Like, for example, the newly opened Galaxy's Edge, which was on the stream a bunch in an image. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter. There are these really good adaptions of overall... Chris, stop making Calum laugh. He's doing a show. Quit it. But there have been these really good adaptions of just the worlds we have seen within these movies, perfectly brought to life. I think Hogsmeade is a very good example of this. Of course, Galaxy's Edge, the Black Spire Outpost, is another perfect example. So I just wanted to get in here and talk about how do you guys feel about like the representation that is being done at these parks? If you haven't been to them, I'm sure we've all seen stuff for them at some point. So we can sort of like generalize and say what you would hope to see from them. And maybe like the effects you would have on the canon, because the story of Wizarding World is the Wizarding World is opening up for Muggles, and Muggles are visiting the Wizarding World. And I don't like that because... Calum? I'ma fire you.
I'll second that notion.
AJ? Do we have a third? AJ's the only reason you're still alive, Calum. And Chris, I'm coming for you next. But yeah, and with Galaxy's Edge, it's completely canon. The Black Spire Outpost is canon to the story. So I'm really curious about what you guys feel about these parks, and should it continue?
No. I'll just say it out there, no.
Yes? Yes, it should. I want to go to Hogwarts.
So I have a bit of a personal history, okay?
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys... So when you said this topic, it reminded me of the... Don't know if you guys ever heard... It reminded me of, for whatever reason, this haunted house. And I think the only reason why I say no is because I remember at one point where theme parks and haunted houses were meant for fun. And solely fun. And I'm not saying that, you know, making them canon or making them more, you know, adventurous or having you more into the, you know, lore is necessarily a bad thing. But what came to mind was this haunted house. And I'm trying to remember the name. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you guys heard about the McCamey Manor before. So, for those who don't know, the McCamey Manor started off as a family-friendly haunted house back in the day. And then, of course, like, over time, it was a quick change. It went from, like, a small community, you know, haunted house that, you know, was family-friendly. Your only payment to go in was donate dog food, and they would give it to a charity to feed, you know, homeless dogs or dogs in shelters and stuff, right? And went from that, and then it became like this icon almost overnight where they fired, like, because they used to have, like, just volunteer, like, kids being, like, you know, the actors or the people who, you know, who jump and scare you, to all of a sudden this extreme thing where they made it more scarier. And for a while, it was really popular. Even amongst, like, famous people of the horror genre, like Elvira used to praise it, you know, just any big name like horror movie geek or horror movie icon used to praise this. But then there lied in a problem of they had to make it more intense to the point where they had to sign waivers, or people who volunteered, they had to sign waivers, have interviews with the original person who ran it. And you found out that they pretty much, you know, turned it into a torture house. Or is no longer fun, and instead of, like, pretending to cut your hair, they'd actually cut your hair. It went from, like, you know, just jumping at you to actually waterboarding you. It was a fiasco. And, of course...
This seems a lot different from Star Wars and Harry Potter.
Well, I'm getting to that point.
Okay.
But, of course, it eventually died off, I think, either in 2018 or 2019. And, of course, a lot of that was, you know, the guy was avoiding, you know, taxes in the state that he was doing it. And then anything that this haunted house was, and it got infamous. But my point is that it went from something simplistic and fun to something, you know, that was taken too seriously, and also too, it did hurt people. Like, you can actually find topics of it on YouTube of how horrible it is. And my fear of what these theme parks are doing, trying to make stuff more canon, trying to have it more interacting, is being like, it might be fun for now. But what I'm afraid of is that it's going to go to different extremes. Like, for example, if you are a muggle who goes into Hogwarts, right? And it can be fun for a little bit, like you get the chocolate frogs. And I'm not a Harry Potter person, so I'm only guessing what I know. Not by choice. I don't hate the franchise. I just haven't invested in it enough. I'm working on that, though. But from what I remember, it's like, yeah, you get to hop on the train, you get to eat the frogs, you get to see, floating candles and all that. But then I'm afraid that they're going to take it to another extreme that might not fly. And these kind of things don't happen overnight, and that's not my concern. I'm afraid of, like, the after. Like, they'll start introducing, like, more of the darker elements. Like, for example, the one, I've only seen up to 4 movies of Harry Potter, and the one thing that, like, concerns me is, like, oh, what happens if they make the Chamber of Secrets? And even though they don't have it, you can't get an actual basilisk, but let's say they made an animatronic, and something goes wrong. Someone can get hurt. And also, too, then it takes away the fun, because the other fear I have of it is that people are going to take it too seriously. Like, if we're in a Star Wars, type of, canon theme park where they, put it over the edge of being like, hey, you get to experience your Jedi fantasy, but then they take it too far of being like, hey, if you're a part of this ride, you have to be, if you claim that you're a Jedi or a Sith in the ride, you have to have a lightsaber fight, which, at first, I think everybody when they get a lightsaber of any sort, no matter how cheap or how expensive it is, you want to have a Star Wars fight. But what happens if, like, the actor takes it too far and he whacks you over the head with it? Or, you take it too far and you hurt the actor. What I'm afraid of is that it will turn into a bigger problem. And also, too, you don't go to theme parks to overly exert yourself or get, like, too lost. You go in just to have fun. Enjoy the rides. And I'm afraid of doing stuff like this might cause another McCamey Manor. Except for in theme parks.
Oh, dear.
Because when you step into a theme park, you're already at some form of risk already. Like, we have heard of, rides being shut down because something was wrong or something horrible happened, or maintenance wasn't up to par. Because you're already putting yourself at risk like that.
I'm doing a podcast right now. All right, have fun.
But my point is that I'm afraid, especially, like, the other concern too is fandoms nowadays. I'm not saying that fandoms have never been, like, a huge problem. They've always had a kind of like a darkness to them, but of recent, people do take their fandoms a little bit too far at times. And that's another concern that I have with making this canon is the fandoms are just going to get worse with it being like, oh, it was in the ride, so it's officially canon. And because I've already seen, like, quite a bit of bad stuff that came from fandoms of recent years. And I'm afraid, like, it will be fun for now, but eventually it will turn into a problem where it's just like, it's no longer fun going to a theme park anymore, where you can just go on rides, see, play the games, buy the souvenirs. It will turn into a bigger monster. And I think if they are going to do this, they should take lessons from things like the McCamey Manor and being like, don't try to up the ante every year. Or don't take this too seriously. And that's why I say no. Is because I'm not afraid of the moment. I'm afraid of what will lead on to later.
Yes, that is definitely a big concern. After hearing about what you just said, Mel, there is the risk that people can just go too far.
Yeah, I definitely agree that if stuff like that were to happen, it could ruin the theme park experience. That being said, my general thoughts, I don't see Disney waterboarding people. I just don't. I can't imagine it. I do think that there is definitely risk when you're getting bigger and bigger. Like, I've seen these animatronics that, like, soar over people's heads. And, like, if those fell on somebody, that would suck. But at the same time, I think with stuff like with these theme parks, I think the best part of them is bringing these worlds to life. Like, I guess this is an example. It's not something I care about, but look at Cars Land in Disney World. It's Radiator Springs. They made Radiator Springs, and they got the giant cars. It looks incredible. And who would even care? Like, who would put that much detail into Cars Land? And it looks great.
People are passionate about it, yeah.
The Wizarding World of Harry Potter, you're walking to Hogwarts, man. There's all the shops. There's Ollivander's wand shop. There's the 3 broomsticks. They don't even serve soda at the restaurants just to keep up that illusion. Yeah, they serve butterbeer, lemonade, and something else. I think it might be tea. And with Star Wars, don't even get me started on Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I'm hoping to go there this summer, and it looks incredible. You can pilot the Millennium Falcon, receive missions from Haldo and Naka, and see Chewbacca. You can ride all these rides. There's plenty of gift shops. It just looks incredible. You're in Star Wars, man. That's so cool. I understand the risks that we keep getting bigger and bigger, and it might not be fun if we keep making things canon. But I'm sorry, I love it. I love that I can hear about the Black Spire Outpost in Han Solo's movie, and then go to the Black Spire Outpost. I love that I can celebrate Star Wars in Star Wars Land, and it's so cool to me. I love the idea of IP theme parks. It's so great. What do you guys think, AJ and Calum?
Well, I actually had the privilege of going to Galaxy's Edge in October with my mom, and it was Disneyland in California for the very first time, and I will agree, Galaxy's Edge is an experience if you are a Star Wars fan, and I also understand Mel's concern. I really think you did a great job pointing all that out. To me, I feel like if you want to make a theme park based on a movie or show, it's like making the new Star Wars movie. You have to do it with good intention. You shouldn't do it just to please people. Like, if something doesn't work out, don't try to fix it just to please them. Fix it because you realize there's a mistake. Don't do it just to please someone. That's why I think Galaxy Edge is like a perfect theme park. They're just trying to show what's great about Star Wars is the lore, the setting, and that's why everybody's so drawn to it. That's why they love it. And
I want to play off what you just said a little bit, AJ. Something we described in the last episode when we talked about the Skywalker saga sort of as a whole. Galaxy's Edge is not afraid to celebrate all of Star Wars. There's stuff there for Rebels. There's stuff there for Clone Wars. There is prequel stuff. You can get a bust of Count Dooku.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I did go on the Millennium Falcon. It was really cool. So basically you're in a group. You get these, I don't know what they're not tickets, they're like roles. You're either the pilot, the shooter, or the mechanic. Me and my mom were the mechanics, and you got to work with the group, and it was chaotic. It was really fun. It was just, we had a terrible pilot, so I was fixing everything. So that was really cool. And the best part is the character running that whole thing, you would expect to be like Chewie or Han or someone like that. It's Hondo from Clone Wars, and they got Jim Cummings to voice him again.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes.
With this incredible animatronic.
Yes. So I was like, that's a great example of not trying to please the fan. You just choose an idea with a good intention. It's your choice, not anybody else's.
And I have a question for you, AJ. What was it like to sit in the Millennium Falcon? What was it like to walk into the Millennium Falcon?
It was amazing. In fact, my R2 unit from Galaxy's Edge is actually over there. Did I ever show you guys?
You have not. You made your own droid?
Hold on.
I think she has shown us this on Instagram, but I think she's yet to show it on the podcast.
This is AJ's special droid.
Oh,
look at that. It's a red R2.
Oh my gosh. And making it was... Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay, so making it is even more complicated, and I loved it. It was like a whole factory. You had to pick parts from a conveyor belt and use like this futuristic screwdriver to make it. It was confusing because there was a lot of people, but at the same time, you really got to make your own R2 unit, and it does work.
I am blown away by Galaxy's Edge. Like, you can make your own lightsaber, you can make your own BB or R2.
I didn't get to do that.
I mean, to be fair, it's really pricey. That's the problem with theme parks.
This one was really pricey.
Well, to be fair, you have your own droid. That's yours.
Yeah, they even asked what I would name it, and I said R8 P15 because I kind of named it after Obi-Wan's R2 unit.
You are my new favorite person, AJ. That is a deep lore move.
Thanks.
But Calum, after hearing everything you've heard, what else is there to say, my man? Tell us.
Galaxy's Edge. If I'm ever going to return to America, I should invest in going to Galaxy's Edge. I suppose, just going off topic, I've seen Wicked on Broadway. Okay, going back on the topic, because that's something I forgot to mention. Yeah, thank you. Theme parks are a great way to expand on the things that people just love about. I mean, when I was younger, my parents would take me and my sister to Disneyland Paris every single year during the October holidays, and it was magical. Just seeing it all. Even if I wasn't much of a roller coaster person, and still am not, it was just amazing just to see it all, just go on the ride, just have fun, and just see all these characters, just get sucked into the atmosphere, and just even going to various different places. The hotels had different themes. It's just unforgettable. It's unforgettable. And yeah, I'd highly recommend Disneyland Paris because Paris isn't too far away. I don't know if there's much else to say about Star Wars Galaxy Edge because I haven't been there, and AJ and Kneale's obviously experienced it firsthand, so good on you. And will I go there? God knows.
I also, too, want to point out real quick despite my criticism, I've never been to Disneyland or Disney World ever, and it's still like my goal to go to any of those. Like, I haven't been to Universal because we weren't that kind of company. Like, here in Colorado, we just have Six Flags and Waterworld as like the closest thing to theme parks that you're gonna get.
Better than no theme park.
Well, yeah, and I still have, like, despite what my concerns are in the future, as of right now, it's just like, hey, if any one of you are just like, hey, I'm going here, I have enough money to take you, would you? I'd be like, oh, fuck yes. Especially, like, one of the things I do want to do is make my own lightsaber, for sure. Not sure about a droid, but I already have, like, one in my head. But I think as of right now, I think it's a cool idea. I'm just more worried about future sake.
I don't know if you guys have seen the BD1 units, which were featured in Fallen Order, which was a game that came out. If they add those droids to friggin' the Star Wars thing, I'll be all about that, because BD1 is my favorite looking droid ever. He even rides on your back like Pikachu. It's so cute.
Wow.
The point is, ladies and gents who have watched this show, these amazing theme parks, whether it be Wizarding World of Harry Potter, whether it be Disney World, Disneyland, whether it be Galaxy's Edge, or even frickin' Cars Land, have done the incredible. They have taken these worlds, which we care so much about, and brought them to our world. And they cost a ton of money to go to. And that's okay. Not even kidding. I'm going to go there and spend like $5,000.
Jeez.
Look, they have this replica of General Grievous's head, and I want it. I love Grievous. But with that, ladies and gents, that has been our show. Calum, where can they find you at?
So we didn't get to talk about Mandalorian and the Film Awards like we thought we did, but there's been some fantastic stuff from both of those. But either way, you can find me on the Stardust.
We'll do it next time.
Yeah, we'll do it next time.
I promise I'll at least watch The Mandalorian. I don't know about 9 yet. We are trying to work on seeing that in theaters before it goes out of theaters, but I at least promise I'll see Mandalorian by the time of the next episode. And if I don't, I just won't join.
Wonderful. Calum, go ahead.
I am on YouTube, I am on Stardust, I'm on Pinterest, I am here and there and everywhere. Let's get on with it. AJ.
You're on Pinterest?
Yeah, I'm on Pinterest.
I didn't know that.
The more you know.
Is it just Scotswizard? Or...
No, it's just my name, Calum McCritchie.
Oh, okay. Go follow Calum at Pinterest. Hey. I mean, like, what the heck? AJ, where can we find you?
You can find me AJHeb15 on Stardust, and then you can find me on Instagram for AJHeb if you want to look at my life with black and white photography.
And of course, your amazing arts you keep posting about.
Oh, that too. Thank you.
And Mel, where can we find you?
All right. Well, you guys can find me on Stardust at ImperfectVanity. No special characters, especially since I'm trying to reach 1,000 on Stardust before April 24th as like a birthday present to me. And I will be making reactions actually either tonight or tomorrow again. You can also find me on Instagram, imperfect_vanity. You can actually find me anywhere as long as it has Imperfect Vanity in the name or my real name. Either or. I'm not that hard of a person to find. But if you are going to add me on Facebook, at least tell me who you are, because I will deny you. And I don't go on Facebook that much. So there. That's why I don't advertise my Facebook.
And of course, you can find me. You can also find Calum, you can find Chris, and you can find a bunch of other people right here on this channel, whether it be in Minecraft videos, whether it be in playthroughs of the letter or reviews. We're all here and we're all doing things, and we're hoping to get more members of the Reactaholics cast in here. So hopefully you can find us all on this channel eventually. Well, we're already on this channel. You know what I mean. Outside of this show, hopefully you'll be able to find us on this channel in the future. But for me specifically, I do a lot of stuff here. So if you want me, go ahead and subscribe. If you would like to check out my Instagram, I am at Dr. Knealetapus. And if you want to check out my Stardust, which is coming back, it is also Dr. Knealetapus. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This was a really good episode, in my opinion. And how do we want to go out? Calum, tell another joke.
Christopher Lloyd. I'm sorry, no. Go ahead, Mel.
Okay, Mel, go ahead. What's your joke?
So, fuck. Hold on. I swear.
Yes, you did swear.
Well, if that was the joke, it made me laugh.
Thank you. I'm here all day. Fry the veal. Okay, I remembered it. Today, my son asked, "Can I have a bookmark?" And I burst into tears. 11 years old, and he still doesn't know my name is Brian.
Oh my gosh. No. It's a funny... We're all dads now. That joke turned all of us into dads. You're a dad, I'm a dad, AJ's a dad, Calum's a mom.
Oh, Christopher Tolkien would be so proud of Where There's a Whip. Oh, yes.
Well, ladies and gents, thank you for watching. Have a good day. And remember, Baby Yoda loves you. And we're talking about Mandalorian next week. Bye.
Bye.
May the Force be with you.